Playing solo can offer one of the best experiences on DayZ, and after mostly playing solo for thousands of hours, I've learned there are things that you can do to not just survive but also thrive. And here I'll break down the tactics and strategies you'll need to do just that. If you like the video, please leave a like or a subscribe, it really helps me out. But without further ado, let's get into the video. What the... Oh. I guess that's why Rocky ended on a freeze frame. I'll start off with the lowest level, but I'll get more technical as it goes on. I just want to make sure there's something for everyone. So, starting off, utilize your stamina bar. Heavy gear reduces stamina and so does running everywhere, which means if you're getting shot at, you probably won't be able to run to safety. Also, before you take on infected, make sure your stamina is as high as possible so you can get more heavy shots in. Heavy shots make infected stumble and do the most damage, knocking them down way more quickly, so you should always start a fight with infected with one of these hits. And never attack them barehanded. Not only can this ruin gloves, but it takes way more hits, meaning you're leaving yourself vulnerable and open to other players and other attacks from infected for much longer. Never drink directly from wells. Always fill a bottle and drink in cover. It's quicker and leaves you vulnerable for a fraction of the time it takes to drink with your hands. In the rain, don't keep seeking shelter. Travel under trees or even along walls and houses. Rain in DayZ feels and falls like real rain at an angle, meaning you can traverse an entire city without getting wet. And if you're not in a city, traveling in woods can keep you dry too, as the leaves act as a canopy. This is important to do because becoming ill due to wet clothing or drying by a fire makes you extremely vulnerable as a solo player, so it should be avoided at all costs. If you do get wet though, make sure to wring out your clothing by placing them in your hands and pressing the action button. Fires are taught to people as a primary source of survival, but in actual fact, as a solo, they should be a last resort when every other option has been depleted. Also, a really good tip to know is even if it's raining, if there are spawned in clothing outside that haven't been touched by other players, they will definitely be dry. But if you do get sick and keep sneezing or coughing, put a single rag in your hands and gag yourself, kind of like you do on a lonely Friday night. This isn't a perfect solution, but in a pinch it can be a good way to muffle your coughing. Codeine can also be used to suppress certain symptoms, and keep in mind from patch 126 onwards, morphine can be used as well. And always avoid storing weapons in backpacks. Keep guns on your person and your heaviest items in your backpack in case you encounter a gunfight. Then add your backpack to the quick select menu to quickly ditch it. Being able to quickly drop your backpack on DayZ is an invaluable way to give yourself lots more stamina and therefore a combat advantage. Sorry, I don't think I said the word backpack enough. Make sure to keep bandages on your person too. Anything you need during an encounter should be stored on your body and not in your backpack. I hate that word. This one I can't stress enough. You need to take extra precautions to avoid being ill. Not just because of sneezing, coughing or grunting, but things like vomiting are serious. Stopping to vomit in the middle of a street or worse, a battle can render you easy pickings. This next tip gets a lot of backlash, but it's true. Always fight in first person for an advantage. First person view improves accuracy and situational awareness, giving you a tactical edge in tight situations. You can play in third person the rest of the time, but in conflict, you're at a disadvantage. And when I've said this in the past, so many people have commented and been like, well, I'm a Don and I play in third person. That is absolutely fine. It's not a knock to third person. Third person is aesthetically pleasing, but strategically in combat, it's not as good as first. Make sure to use the environment more than you normally would. Run through tree lines and never directly across fields. Run through ditches, around and not down roads, and maneuver through awkward sides and gaps between buildings. Travel like you're always being stalked by somebody through a scope, because honestly, sometimes you are. You can also use sound in creative ways. If you know you're not alone in a town, you can throw items to distract infected. When they run towards the noise, the other players will follow their noise and go to that area and scope out that building thinking you're there, giving you an advantage. And look, the new music in DayZ is great. but you should probably turn it down or off so you can listen out for gunshots, footsteps, and any little sound cues you might rely on. Although spawning mushrooms and fruit can indicate other players are nearby, remember they also alert other players that you're there. So try to hit specific areas, get what you need, and then get out. Always carry an EpiPen. Use an EpiPen for stamina boosts during extended gunfights or when you need to escape quickly. And morphine should be kept too. This is especially useful if you suffer damage because it allows you to keep running for a short while even when limping. It's basically DayZ's version of crack. And always dress down. What I mean by this is make sure you don't look super geared. This doesn't act as a deterrent many people think it does. It makes you a larger target. Nobody ever gives super geared guys the benefit of the doubt. Whereas if you're in a shirt and jeans, you don't look overpowered and nobody really wants to take the extra effort to go after you. Never dress in police clothing. They're decent clothing in the beginning, but they immediately tell players where you've been and that you're almost certainly armed. And remember, tough gear is usually heavy gear, so there's an argument to be had against using the plate carrier in most situations. Tactical level armor is more than enough for most encounters. If you ever stop to check your inventory, do it in a bush or corner of a house. Never just crouch down by a wall and hope for the best. It's not worth the risk. And always scope out a town before you enter. Running in blind is just asking for trouble. Try to sneak by infected instead of killing them. This just leaves a trail of bodies for people to follow you by, and they don't despawn for around 6 minutes. If you do need to take them out, use a knife and stealth attack. This takes them down silently and quickly. Another good way to take them out are headshots from something like the Mark II, which should be in every solo's inventory. It's a great way to clear out an entire town from a distance, because if you risk a melee attack, there's always a possibility they'll damage you or your clothing. This just adds unnecessary risk from illness, broken supplies, repair time, and the loss of shock resistance. If someone pins you in a house, don't be afraid to use a smoke grenade. This can block line of sight. Just be careful because the smoke does blow with the wind. But if you do team up or get held up, never reveal everything you have. Always undersell your arsenal and supplies. If you plan to share meds or something, make sure you split them before you share them, just on the off chance they run away with something or disappear before you have a chance to get it back. Northwest Airfield is a tough pill to swallow when you're staying low profile. What you're best doing is ambushing players on their way out. There are actually good places to do that. Firstly, here, and secondly, here, but basically anywhere in between the Northwest Airfield and the next place with some cool opportunities. This is just where I go. Just beware that any shots you make will be heard at the airfield, so be super quick with your ambush. And if you get too many supplies, remember you need to stay light, so consider making a stash if you feel as though you're starting to get cluttered with too many supplies. Streamlining inventory management is the best way to do it, but sometimes this is impossible. However, as a solo, you probably shouldn't focus on building a base, so a stash is the best way to go. A super useful trick is to make sure you put time into learning every possible contingency so you have an answer for any problem that arises. And to do that, just click on this video here for way more solo tips and tricks to really maximize your game, or for something else, click here. And as always, until next time.